Tottenham fans, we are here yet again.
How has he got limited resources, though? Sorry, how has he got limited resources? Tottenham has spent a lot of money.
The Tottenham fans were saying we've got our Tottenham back, and I get that because of what they'd seen with Conte and Jose Mourinho. They've got their Tottenham back. Great goal scorers, terrible defensively, can't keep clean sheets, and basically they're the team who I describe as the most entertaining team in the Premier League, who I want to watch week in, week out because of that. But they have got their Tottenham back, and that's what most people remember Tottenham as, a team who play, score goals, nice on the eye, but have got no steel about them.
I'd like them to hold his nerve with him and see, once their key players come back into the side, like all teams suffer from, that this won't, because he's constantly alluding to the fact that he needs his players back.
Yeah. It's been an absolute torrid couple of days to be a Spurs fan, you know, on top of actually having a very bad season. Ange Postecoglou has been criticised and held to account over the last few days following that poor result against Everton. Daniel Levy has been called out. The players have been called out. And now I'm finally going to get my say after a couple of days of what I think of the overall situation at Spurs. So today on the Sunny Talk Spurs YouTube channel, we're going to be talking about the problems at Tottenham Hotspur. And if you are new to the Sunny Talk Spurs YouTube channel, then drop us a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let me know in the comments, are you Ange in, Ange out, and what is Spurs' biggest problem? So yeah, this might be quite a long video because I want to just sort of dissect, and it might actually be quite unscripted because I just want to get all my thoughts out that I've been thinking the last few days about Spurs, because it's been an absolute circus. I mentioned that in my reaction video after the Everton game. It's been unbelievable, the input from Spurs fans, from rival fans, from neutrals about the current state of Tottenham Hotspur. You know, we currently sit 15th in the Premier League table. This is unprecedented. We've not seen the lows of this in many years. We've been used to Champions League runs and, you know, doing well in the Premier League, finishing in top four or in those European spaces. But it's not to be the case this year. We are down near the bottom. You know, in the form guide, we are actually one of the worst teams after Leicester and Southampton. It's not been good, it's not been pretty. And the Everton game summed this all up. We have been heading towards a result like this for a very long time. And those of you who have been subscribed for a long time will know I've been a massive fan of Ange Postecoglou and the breath of fresh air which he brought to the club in those first 10 games last season. My current standpoint, and I'll get this out the way now, is I'm very much on the fence. I'm not sure whether I'm fully Ange in or I'm fully Ange out, because I have reason to believe that. But yesterday there was a tweet that came out from reliable Tottenham journalist Alasdair Gold around Ange Postecoglou's future, and basically guaranteed he's going to be given more time. The tweet read this. He basically said that he understands Spurs remain intent on trying to help Ange Postecoglou rather than removing him from his position at the moment. They need to move far more quickly with that help, though, because the injury situation is not clear. And this was also backed up by the likes of Matt Law, who are reliable journalists in this field. And it just goes to show that Daniel Levy is sticking to his guns. I admire that to an extent. He thinks that Ange Postecoglou can possibly turn it around. He's giving him the benefit of the doubt with the injury crisis at the club. But the problem is that the problem with Spurs is down to a handful of things, and I'm going to attack them one by one. But before we go any further, I just, you know, as all of you will know, I work for the amazing Talk Sports, and the reaction of Ange, of Levy and the players has been quite cataclysmic over the last 24 hours.
Conte went when they were fourth in the table. So, you know, obviously maybe upstairs they're happy with him. They can't be happy with the results. But he's on thin ice right now. He's got to get results in every game he plays. And he doesn't look like he's coping well. It's certainly getting a whole lot worse for him.
I think Martin's spot on. Thin ice. That sums it up, I think, Simon,
Well, if
doesn't
you
it?
keep losing games, I think I think I'd like to see Tottenham hold their nerve in terms of let this season play out. I don't think Tottenham Hotspur are going to get relegated, but we do see that this season will be defined in the next 7 games, because all of them consist of, I mean, they've got Hoffenheim coming up, they've got Elfsberg coming up, they've got Leicester at home coming up, they've got Brentford, they've got Liverpool, then they've got Aston Villa in the Cup. So their season will come down. If they don't win these European games, then they'll struggle in the Europa League. If they lose to Liverpool, if they put out a performance like they did against Everton, with all respect to how Everton changed their shape and how much more at it they were, if they put a performance against Liverpool, they'll get smashed to pieces in the semi-final replay at Anfield, and they'll get battered by Aston Villa, and that means there'll be no league position for them, there'll be no FA Cup for them, there'll be no League Cup for them, and if they don't get their boots on in the 2 Europa League games, there'll be no Europa League for them. So his season will come up to. I'd like them to hold his nerve with him and see, once their key players come back into the side, like all teams suffer from, that this won't, because he's constantly alluding to the fact that he needs his players back. I don't know why he's inserting, I don't want to play the victim card, who was suggesting that you needed to. So he brings himself into the conversation by the very nature of the fact that he feels like he's being maligned.
Well, Simon, at 10:15, let's put it out there. Was this a result, 3-2 Everton? Was it a result born out of the Moyes effect or the Ange effect? And Tottenham fans, where are you this morning? I mean, how strong is the case for Spurs to continue sticking with Postecoglou, but are they drifting towards relegation?
At some point it will change. I mean, I haven't seen anything that gives me that impression. They changed their formation. They play 3 at the back, same style. They're so gun-ho that everyone goes forward. They remind me of, his style of football reminds me of how I used to play football at school, where no one really defends, everyone goes forward. If you lose the ball, it looks like they're going to concede every single time they lose the ball. Worrying times for Tottenham. We'll talk about their injury crisis in a moment, but worrying times for Spurs, right?
But that's the thing, it is worrying, and I did that game against Everton yesterday, and Everton, I don't think you could discredit the way Everton started that game. I thought they were brilliant. Took their chances. That's one thing about Everton. Up until that point, they'd been creating some chances, but not taking any of them. Calvert-Lewin turned into prime Zlatan.
What a goal that was.
What a goal. They played so well, Everton, right? But and Spurs just caused their own problems, not getting close to people. I think Ange's got to take a little bit of the blame for playing that 3 at the back, when I think they had players on the pitch to go to a 4, but he tried something different, playing the same way.
But they played the same way. It might have been 3 centre halves, but they played the same way.
It was bizarre, and that surprised me, because you're thinking you've tried a new system, but you've tried to play the same way when the players are not used to playing in this system. But again, I think he could do more. I think the players can certainly take ownership of their own performances, because some of them are just way off it at the minute. But there's no way, and even though it's Spurs, even if it was Arsenal, I would still be saying the same thing. Sometimes you can't legislate for some of these injuries. I mean, these are the players I've got out, and you starters, right? Brennan Johnson, been brilliant this year, right? Fraser Forster has been deputising. I know he's not a starter, but deputising, right?
I know, but they've got Kinski in there.
Okay, so I'll take him out, right?
Okay.
Yves Bissouma, starter.
Yep.
For Carragher, the goalkeeper, starter. Udogie, starter.
Yep.
Christian Romero, starter. Van der Ven, starter. Bentancur, Solanke, Werner, and Odegaard.
Well, I wouldn't put Werner in there.
No, but Odegaard. All these players are missing. If you take that core of any team out of that core of player out of any team, you are going. If that happened to Arsenal, Arsenal would be in tatters.
Decimated. Okay. While I agree with you, I think it's fair I balance it up a bit, right? Playing devil's advocate. Madison's a starter, Kulusevski's a starter, Son's a starter, Sar's a starter. You could argue that Kinski's their number 1 goalkeeper now. You could argue that, right? Porro's a starter. The other players, Dragason's a centre-back by trade, Davis is, depending on what side. Gray, okay. By the way, I think Archie Gray's been fantastic. Right? He's done the best of a worst scenario he's been given. So I make it, 6 players that are first teamers. Now, I'm not suggesting that they are good enough to beat Everton, but they're certainly better than the first half we saw against Everton.
I agree with that.
And when you see that other Spurs sides, and by that I mean when Spurs have been fully fit or had more players to choose from, they still haven't beaten the likes of teams around them. Leicester, Ipswich, Wolves. Of course, they've beaten Everton once, but they lost yesterday. Palace as well. So even when they've had a much better squad to choose from, they're still not winning the game.
And that's where I say the players have to take ownership of their own performances, and they've been poor. But also it's about relationships as well, because you're right, they've got first teamers, but Archie Gray playing just behind Porro, that doesn't happen often. Dragosan playing alongside Ben Davis. Do you know what I mean?
No, you're right, you're right.
It's almost like, yes, you're putting first teamers in, but they're not like Son playing down the centre forward is not his natural position. Kulusevski's been better coming from a central area. But again, you can only make so many excuses for them. But there's a bit of both. Spurs players were poor, didn't show up, and Everton were absolutely superb.
They were.
I thought Calvert-Lewin was brilliant. I thought Lindstrom was brilliant. I thought Idrissa Gueye was good. Njai,
The
great
second goal was fantastic.
The little step over.
Yeah.
Decore, every single one of those players deserves a lot of credit because I thought they were brilliant.
Okay, 2 questions to ask, then we can put it out to you lot out in Radio Land. 1, does Spurs stick with Postecoglou?
Yes.
Okay, the second one, are they in a relegation scrap?
No, but
They're
not
not.
yet. No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Let's get some reaction to this, shall we? With the former Spurs striker, it's a very good morning to Mido. Morning, Mido.
Morning, Mido.
Yes, good morning, guys. Good morning, good morning.
So, look, 1 point from 6 Premier League games, 6th from bottom of the table. Are injuries a good enough excuse for Ange?
Yeah, to be honest, it's embarrassing, and I don't think the real problem is Ange or any other coach. And I'm being honest here. The people on top, they've been running the club from a financial point of view, not from a football point of view. And I feel sorry for every Spurs fan, and I'm one of them. That the club has been run with these ideas, and I always believe that you always have to find the balance between the technical operation and the right investment. And with Daniel Levy and people on the top, to be honest, and I have all the respect for them, but I really think that their first concern is to make money out of this football club. And I'm being honest. I'm being honest here. Tottenham is a huge club with a great history. A club is that in London got the best stadium in England, the best facilities. Any player in the world should be proud to play for such a big club like Tottenham. But now it's very difficult to attract top players. It's even very difficult. It's even more difficult to attract top coaches because it's obvious that the management and the board, their first concern and their first goal out of this football club is to make money, not to win trophies.
Mido,
And this is the problem.
can I say something that will back that up? I look at previous Tottenham managers and coaches in recent history. I'm looking at Nuno, what a job he's doing at Forest. Conte has taken Napoli back to the top of the league. We all know the success of Jose. I think they're sitting second in Turkey. So the level of coach that they've had is excellent.
Yes. Again, it's we're talking here in the same direction. If you bring the best coach in the world with this environment and this mentality, and I always say that the mentality comes from the top. If the chairman and the board are willing and really planning to take this football club to the top, it will go down to everyone at the club. Goes even to the youngest supporter in the stand. The mentality comes from the top. The goals comes from the top. It comes from good transfers. It comes from keeping your best players. It comes from having a clear target is to be always in the top 4. I'm not saying that to win the league, to be always in the top 4, to play Champions League, football, to try to win one of the cups. This is where Tottenham belong, and this is where Tottenham should be. This is what I really believe. I see the club got all the qualities to be in much better place where they are now. And maybe what I'm saying, I'm sure if they hear what I'm saying now, the management, if they hear what I'm saying now, maybe they will be Okay, not happy with me, but I I'm really saying this because I really love this football club. I'm honored to play for Tottenham, and football is simple. Football is simple. It's science. You spend money the right way. You have the right mentality, and the right mentality again goes to everyone at the football club. But we are all football players, and we know if we see that the board is not getting the best players, is getting rid of their best players. What am I gonna, as a top player? What am I going to fight for? I'm not gonna fight. This is the mentality of the club. I will end up to be an employer. I will end up to be an employer. I will come in every day for training, train. We play the game. If we win the game, okay, good, no problem. If we don't win, okay, it's all right. Let's go to the next game. This is not the mentality of a club. I'm sorry.
Mido, I've got a call. I've got a text here from Scott, who's a Spurs fan, who says you're 100% right. This mess is down to Levy and the board. Football, not their core interest. A pound note is.
We are still back again 18 months later. Another managing question. Whatever Ange is doing or not Ange is doing, and we have to question what is the board doing or what is the board has a goal. I don't see the goal of this club. As I say again, from my point of view, I think Ange at the moment was the only option in the last summer. If you go back historically, Tottenham hasn't got a good reputation to get coaches after Mourinho, Conte, etc. Who wants to come here? They know it's a graveyard of coaches because they only have.
Well, you say who wants to come here, bro? You say who wants to come here? I mean, we got Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte.
But they're left already.
So you can't say you don't attract top managers because we can.
How can Ange? Well, actually, pretty much, I would say he has very good football. Everybody loves him at the beginning. Of course, he has limited resources, and I know the club needs to redo the whole recruitment.
How has he got limited resources, though? Sorry, how has he got limited resources? Tottenham has spent a lot of money. When he first come in, when Ange first got in the job, it's only Chelsea who spent more money than Tottenham.
Of course, the injuries are lucky at the same time because top players are injured, and that has to be questioned with the fitness coach as well, and how they're training, because it can't be that so many injuries happening within the squad.
Well, the manager takes the training sessions. The manager's in charge of training.
Well, listen, we are in a modern football player world. The manager's obviously from the tactical and technical is there. Every single club now has data/fitness coaches, you name it. All of that. These players are like robots today. They're not in my days. You have to train yourself in David Lloyd's, you know? The club has to look in the mirror, and the board has to look in the mirror and say, what is the goal of this club? These fans are more than frustrated. They're paying a hell of a lot of money, one of the most expensive tickets up and down the country, to see what? A nice stadium, nice concert. They want to see football and winning something.
Spurs have been sussed out, in my opinion. Everyone bombs on. You want to play free-flow football, kamikaze stuff. And teams will say, sit in, we'll hit them on the counter-attack and we'll create chances. You know, there has to be, you've got to have a plan B, you've got to have a plan C. There has to be some discipline. When you've got injuries, change the way you play. Arsenal did it.
I just want to see the fundamental side being changing at Tottenham. You know, the club has potential massively. They have a nice gun, but they don't know how to shoot with the gun. That's the problem I see with Spurs, you know. And I hope for Ange to recover this very quickly and get some potential in the next few weeks, some players to support that.
My problem with Ange is his stubbornness when the tactics and in-game management and trying to get something right. It's just, we're playing this way, it's who we are, mate, and this is what we're doing. And that can't continue. You're 15th in the table, you're getting beat every week.
Everybody's saying he's stubborn. Yes, he's stubborn because he's trying to create stability within the squad that everybody knows. If somebody's missing, he can replace and he knows how to play there. And that's where the problem with Ange is not at the moment is. He hasn't got that managed so far. But I hope he can do that.
When you watch Tottenham, Manu.
Yes.
What positives could you take from them?
Expect the injuries players to be back as soon as possible. But even with that, at the start of the season, they were playing with almost the whole team and they were losing games as well. So I know it's a big issue, for Postecoglou. I know that it cannot be an excuse when you play for such a big club like Tottenham. And for me, what is worrying me the most, is when I watch them, it's the body language, the organization, what Postecoglou wants to do with his player on the pitch. Even if you play without top defenders, the spine of your team is damaged. I can understand that, but it's not an excuse. We've seen with Bournemouth, they're playing with such big players, out, and they're still performing very well. So you need to have a plan. You have to stick with it, and I don't see that. And as on top of it, when I look Postecoglou, and I have a respect for him, to be honest with you, but I feel pity because he looks so miserable, and the messages he sends to his players is like, there's nothing I can do anymore, with these players. So for me, when I look at Spurs, to answer correctly your question, I feel pity for the Spurs fan, to be honest. And I was at the game last week, the big game against Arsenal, and it was boys against man in the first half. When I look against Everton, the first half, oh my goodness, it was such a pity to watch that, So there is so many things to improve at Spurs and starting in the dressing room.
Well, what I would say is, listen, they are 5 or 6 of them are going first choice and really top players for Tottenham, and that explains where they are in the table now. Tottenham would not be there if those players were fit. I get that. But I mentioned on commentary yesterday, there's a lot spoken about the injury list. This has been going on for last season. After that blistering start Tottenham made and they were top of the table, I know they almost qualified for Champions League football, but if you actually look, and it's a nice round figure including yesterday, the last 50 games, and you go through that, and where the Premier League rank is, so 50 games is basically a season and a half, and look where they are in terms of wins. This is it's almost like a mid-table, in some situations, a bottom half table. This has been going on for a long period when these players weren't all injured at the same time. This is a problem right now in the last sort of, 10 or 12 weeks.
James,
but
look at the goal to score.
Exactly. And what I would say is, and I like the fact Postecoglou comes into Tottenham, and the Tottenham fans were saying we've got our Tottenham back, and I get that because of what they'd seen with Conte and Jose Mourinho. They've got their Tottenham back. Great goal scorers, terrible defensively, can't keep clean sheets, and basically they're the team who I describe as the most entertaining team in the Premier League, who I want to watch week in, week out because of that. But they have got their Tottenham back, and that's what most people remember Tottenham as, a team who play, score goals, nice on the eye, but have got no steel about them.
So I'm going to start. With Ange. It's the best place to start because Ange Postecoglou is a big part of the problem. As I've said, I have been a fan of him. I am a fan of him. And I wanted and want him to succeed at the football club. But at the moment, it's looking quite untenable. I'm quite shocked at some of the news of the backing, but I can understand the dilemma because let's put it this way. We could be in a relegation battle. It's not far off that, are we? With the way it's sort of going. But do we stick or twist at the moment? The club obviously think that Ange Postecoglou deserves more time with the injuries that he sustained in the season. He's currently in a Carabao Cup semi-final against Liverpool, a second leg after winning the first leg. So he's got a chance to win a trophy in that capacity. The Premier League is a write-off. What's the point? There's no, we'd be lucky if we finish top half now, depending on results. We then have the FA Cup. We play Aston Villa away. Not guaranteed, but still could give Villa a good game. And then we have the Europa League, which we still have a few results in, or games in to get results from, I should say. So there's a lot still to play for. And the injury crisis has hampered Ange Postecoglou. But the argument you could say then is, have a lot of these injuries been the fault of Ange Postecoglou, which is quite interesting. At first, I thought I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. And they've been down to a number of reasons, because let's put it this way, rushing Mickey van der Ven and Christian Romero was the fault of the medical team against Chelsea, not of Ange Postecoglou. He was informed that they were good enough to play, but maybe he should have played one of them, like Mickey van der Ven or Romero, not both of them at the same time. On the flip side, maybe he should have given Jed Spence, a more prominent role earlier in the season, not just relied on him as of yet. He's chucked a lot of the youngsters in at the deep end. Archie Gray's played loads of different positions lately. Centre-back, left-back, right-back. Lucas Bergval's played more minutes than he would have thought. Kinski's been chucked in straight away because of the injury to Vicario. So it's a lot of learning on their feet. So that is a problem already. But Ange has, has had the ability to maybe change it and rotate it when possible. Let's look at Dominic Solanke as the perfect example. At Bournemouth, no injuries. At Tottenham, he's had, he had one against Leicester and he's had another one here, and I think he had an illness as well, which obviously can't count for. But there's been lots of different issues regarding injuries. You could say this is also down to, the variation of, his system brings the injuries, the high intensity, the pressing, the running, the distance covered. I think I read a stat that said of all the Premier League injuries this season that are hamstring injuries, 40% of them are at Tottenham. There's a coincidence with that, isn't there? So that's an issue. Another thing with Ange is the system and the style of play. Obviously, when it's good, it's been good. But at the moment, it's a bad watch. It's not linking up. We haven't got our starting defence. The midfield is all over the place. And the attack can't string anything together to get enough goals to win games. We're relying on, inexperienced players to help us pull through. But obviously, I'll get onto that in the players section when it comes to that. But with Ange, it's stubbornness. It's, no willing to change or tweak. He did tweak to a back three against Everton, but you look at that Everton game and we were just outclassed. They could have been 5-0 up at half-time. It was a really bad state of affairs. It was proper poor. I can't vouch for that. But the problem is, Ange hasn't helped himself this season. As I said, last season, we finished 5th. He had an amazing 10 games. But the problem is, some managers have sussed Ange out. And it has been quite detrimental to our form. And the problem is, this has now gone to off the pitch. And he had this reaction to a BBC reporter.
Ange, familiar story. What are your assessment of that performance, please?
Familiar story?
Well, in terms of defeat.
Yeah, okay. Great way to start an interview. It was a tough result for us, and we obviously first half we struggled to get control of the game. Obviously, made some changes in the team that probably weren't helpful in the end. Players kind of struggled to come to terms with it. Everton capitalised on it. But second half, the players put in the right response, and credit to them. But we obviously fell short.
That BBC reporter is well in his right to ask that question. We're in a poor form. You have to, as a journalist myself, I'm a qualified journalist, got a degree. My job as a journalist is to hold people to account. And in sport, that's holding managers to account and players to account if they're not living up to their potential. So the reporter is well in his right to ask that question. But the fact that Ange responds like this, and I'll be honest, the thing is that backs Ange up is he does take a lot of the blame, whereas Conte, Mourinho didn't. I think that's why I've always backed Ange, because he's owned up to it. But the arrogance levels he's shown in press conferences and interviews during his poor form has not been good enough. And by saying that he wins stuff in his second season has not helped him one bit. The problem is now then, what do Tottenham do? Say we lose against Hoffenheim. Say we then lose against Leicester ahead of the Liverpool game. I think we also have a game against Elfsborg and maybe Manchester United. So if we lose all them, or we still don't get many results, then what happens to Ange Postecoglou? Because you're then stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do you keep him until the end of the season and hope he gets, keeps us up and then wins one of the cups, or try to win one of the cups? Or do you sack him and put in Ryan Mason, for the third stint actually? And that's a risk in itself, because what do? You go, you then count yourself out of the cups, because we remember what happened with him in that competition. And then also in the Premier League, would Ryan Mason be able to keep us up? Not really sure. Or do we get someone in for 6 months to maybe steady the ship, someone else? But who would that be? Gareth Southgate? No. Or do we try and pluck out a manager who's been linked with us? Thomas Frank, Iriola. That could be risky as well, and would they want to come? So that would be very, very questionable. The second point of problem of blame, Daniel Levy. Now this sort of speaks for itself. We all know the problems of Daniel Levy. I've had a go at him for years. My personal thing is, and what's annoying is him and Enoch have now upped their ownership in Spurs. They now own a bigger percent. Daniel Levy should really sell this football club. He has no intent to run it as a football club. He's running it as a business. People will say that's a good thing because Tottenham have grown over the years and we've become a bigger club in the natural way. But Levy doesn't care. He cares about go-karts and concerts and stadium tours and tourist fans. He doesn't care about your average match-going Tottenham fan who's grown up supporting the club for years. He cares about the profit. He doesn't care about the glory. He cares about the money in his back pocket. He doesn't treat it like a football club should be treated. That's the be-all and end-all. You can say he's grown the club. You can say all that. But there's a reason we're squeaky clean for PSR and FFP. Because Daniel Levy is not spending anything. He is basically spending the money that he has earned through Tottenham and through player sales to then put back into the club. He's not putting his hand in his own pocket like a lot of other clubs do, say at Chelsea. But Chelsea's situation is an anomaly. But it just stems from all these problems. And I always believe, no matter what line of business, not what team you're in or whatever organisation, it always comes from the top and trickles down. And that's always been the case with Daniel Levy. There's a reason he never backed Poch, he never backed Nuno, he never backed Conte, he never backed Jose. And he hasn't backed Postecoglou to his full extent. You know, look at the summer. We signed Dominic Solanke. Great start. He's been fantastic, I think. But then we signed Archie Gray and Wilson Odebear, and it's just not enough. And Yang, obviously. They're youngsters who are not going to impact the first team straight away. I mean, Archie Gray does look like a player for the future, but he has played more games than he expected. Wilson Odebear played more games and got injured. Yang has come back, and will he feature? I do not know. Daniel Levy is a massive problem at this football club. And until that changes, nothing will change. You can bring in Iriola, you can bring in Thomas Frank. Will they be backed? Will they be actually understood? I'm not so sure. I think it's an absolute joke how Daniel Levy runs this football club. And if you look at the Premier League table at current and the cluster of teams that are in and around Spurs, it's telling. Manchester United, poor owners in Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Glaziers. West Ham United, poor owners in David Sullivan. Tottenham, poor owner in Daniel Levy and ENIC. Everton had poor owners. It's starting to change. Wolves, poor owners. Leicester, poor owners. It's very telling. It's obvious what the situation is. It's Daniel Levy will forever be the problem. So that's why I can't fully have a go at Ange Postecoglou, because it has to fall at the feet of Daniel Levy. He has not backed these managers. He's not brought in the right people to help Postecoglou. Johan Lang hasn't done his job properly. Scott Munn has not done his job properly. It's been an absolute recruitment disaster for years, for 20 plus years, and one trophy to show for it. Yes, we got to a Champions League final, but we got there through luck. We got there through the skill of Pochettino. And, you know, you think about those situations. Kane was injured. Imagine this club if we didn't have Kane and Son in their prime, or all those players, you know, in that Pochettino era. We would have been in a similar situation. It would have been absolutely dire. So that's problem number 2, Daniel Levy. Problem number 3 has to fall also at the feet of the players. This is the final problem. Because you look at that team against Everton. On paper, it's good enough. Everton, 2 facts here. Dominic Calvert-Lewin had not scored a goal since September. And he literally skipped past our defence like it was nothing. And also, if you look at the situation with Everton, they hadn't scored 2 open play goals in a game all season, and they did it against us. That game yesterday, I was a joke. You know, you think, oh, we might draw David Moyes, new manager bounce. I mean, Ange Postecoglou's record against David Moyes, he's never beaten him, so that's a thing as well. But the players out there should know better. You've got Heung-min Son, who I don't think has the capability to be a captain. I didn't back the abuse that he was getting, people calling him, you know, the W word. I just thought that was bang out of order. But he has not been good enough, and he's not showing the signs to be a captain. James Maddison, in his post-match interviews, I'll play one of them now, actually, for you.
Maddison, thanks for joining us. Tough one again. 3-0 down at half-time. We did push it all the way, came back to 3-2, but it just looks like another tough afternoon for us.
Yeah, we're in a tough moment. Not too much to say, to be honest. Squad's a bit depleted, but first half is nowhere near good enough, and I think we made a good observation that it was a tough afternoon. Yeah.
Look, we've got 11 out today, Mellors. I know none of you want to make excuses. I understand that, but in terms of morale, we go to Arsenal, tough night. We then lose 3 players before today. I mean, what does that do to the group?
it's never ideal, but it doesn't explain the 3-0 scoreline at half-time. We've just got to be stronger and defend better and be more resilient. So yeah, with everything considered, it's a tough moment. Going through a bit of adversity. We've got to stick together and grind it out. It's the only way.
That's my last question. How do we pull ourselves out of it?
We've just got to stick together. Like I said, the fans are going to be rightly disappointed. Just got to take that criticism on the chin. All of us. They're entitled to their opinion. A few unhappy fans in the away end there, and rightly so. You got to own up to it. You got to accept that we weren't good enough, and like I said, take that criticism on the chin. Not really too much to say. They probably don't want to hear too much either. But apart from the fact that we're going to keep going, we've got no option, and we need to be better.
It goes to show that even in moments, he sort of said these things when he was at Leicester and they got relegated that season. It's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. The likes of Brennan Johnson, have not been consistent enough all season. It's up to sometimes Kulusevski to pull the rabbit out of a hat. There were some bright sparks yesterday. Jed Spence has been good since he's come in, and Kulusevski has been good, but he's running on empty. Mikey Moore came on and looks great for the future, but the likes of Dragusin, Pedro Porro, it's not good enough. It's been absolutely abysmal. And I will say, the injury crisis hasn't helped, and I've said sort of my thoughts on the injury crisis, but Tottenham players at this level, they need to be doing more. They need to be taking the game by the scruff of their neck, leading, showing by example, and pulling this club in the right direction. It's not been good enough. It's not been consistent enough. You go out there and you do it against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup, but you can't do it against Tamworth in 90 minutes. You can't do it against Everton, a poor Everton team. And it goes to show you that Everton wanted it more. No discredit to Everton. They wanted it more. They played their absolute socks off. They were fantastic. They were sublime. I was so impressed with that Everton side. I can't discredit them. But it goes to show that if you want it more and you just fight your way through these games, you are going to get those results. And I've looked through social media about different things that people have said, the likes of, lots of people who have supported Ange, actually, because, a lot of people, I'm a bit annoyed at all these, I told you so people, because as I say, I'm proper on the fence now. I'm not Ange out, but I'm not as Ange in as I was. I want him to show a bit of needle and a bit of metal to pull this club out, because there's been a lot of people or a lot of managers in similar situations. I know this injury crisis isn't ideal and not great, but managers have had less and been able to do more, if you get what I mean. But a lot of, positive Spurs fans who back the club and back the manager and the players are starting to get fed up. Your likes of a good friend of mine, Ben Bowman, Alice from Alice Talks Football. They are calling out for what it is now. Ben has aired his frustration on his TikTok. Alice did a really good video, which you should both go and check those guys out if you've not seen them already. You probably have. But they speak absolute volumes. And it's good to hear it from someone like Alice, who is a neutral and doesn't have a dog in the fight. But she knows it from the Manchester United point of view, which is quite interesting. So, yeah, just highly frustrating to be a Spurs fan. This is going to be an absolutely monumental couple of weeks. If we don't get a result against Hoffenheim, if we don't get a result against Leicester, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? We're getting sucked into that relegation battle, and it's not even funny anymore. You can't even look at the likes of Arsenal for laughs or West Ham anymore. It's just absolutely shocking. So that's my thoughts on the current situation. I've laid it all bare, unscripted, and just sort of thought that's why I'd get my viewpoint across. But yeah, let me know what you all think in the comments down below. Leave your likes. Road to 6K. Get the subscribes in. That was a passionate piece from me. And also hit the notification bell because it lets you know when I've gone live. Until next time, up the Spurs. I'm going for a lay down because that's knackered me out. Ciao.